How you doing, guys? Today I am starting the coil or ignition module swap on my Magnum 14, ultimately sitting on my 1056. What I've done thus far, just because I forgot to bring the camera out earlier, I just disconnected my throttle springs, which are right there. There's like a little cover plate for the Magnum. It's actually where the rectifier is supposed to go, but in this particular tractor I'm not, excuse the noise in the background, that's my neighbor trying to save his shed, which, to be honest with you, I don't think there's much cellulose left in it. I think the carpenter ants and the termites have pretty much taken that. But with that being said, please disregard, or I apologize for the noise in the background. I took the cover plate off it. I am going to get ready to take the top tin off and get the blower cover. I'm not going to be able to get the I really don't want to take the blower cover completely off because I got my whole throttle set up, all hooked up there. So I'm going to take all the bolts out, obviously, of the blower cover. I'm going to try to situate it kind of sideways, so that way I can get in, get the bolts out, get the coil out of it, and then get the new one in. And I will show you somewhat how I did that. Okay, so as you can tell, I have I'm trying to get better, there we go. I got the blower cover situated to a point where now I can get into the coil area. I'm going to go get a set of wire dikes and just take this wire tie off. So this is the kill switch. Unhook the kill switch. I got two Allen head bolts here. I'll just undo those, get those out of the way, and then the whole coil assembly and the diverter, the air diverter, will all come out as one. At that point, I will be able to swap the air diverter onto the coil, my new coil, and then we'll get the flywheel situated in such a way that I can set the clearance. Okay, so I got the ignition module, or the coil, if you want to call it, out of the motor. These are identical. The one on the right is the new one. The one on the left is the old one. I believe that I was getting an issue with the old one when I hooked up my tack. I think I actually cooked this module because it just was sporadic spark. So with that being said, I just trying to eliminate all the variables. And there's really not, like I said in my last video, there's not that many variables with a Magnum motor. So this is the old one, and that is the new one. They are exactly the same. They're made by the exact same company. Is it Felon? Yeah, it's a Felon 3. They're both exactly the same. There's no difference. They're both marked with the part number, the 4758403. That's the latest part number for these ignition modules and coils. Same thing. It's even marked on the box here. I ended up getting this new coil from Napa. Now, if you go online, what I found is that these things are pretty darn expensive if you want an original Kohler one. And these two here are considered original OEM equipment, even though they don't have the K embossed in the bottom of them like the originals do. This is the coil that you will get if you order an NOS one, for the most part. They run anywhere between $80 and $120. It all depends on where you go to get it. So I've been all over my local area looking for one just because I wanted quick, fast. I want to just get one, do the swap. I ended up getting mine at Napa. That's where I ended up getting this guy. The guy at Napa was super, super cool. He sold it to me for cost. He didn't whack me the $115. He only whacked me $70 for it. So, and it was in a couple days. So let me just give you a touch of background. Before I ended up going with an OEM one, I decided to get one of those cheaper ones off of eBay. And this is what I received. Now, on the package, it is a Kohler part. I'm hoping this will, let me get my hand out of the way, maybe this thing will focus. There it is. You can see ignition for Kohler, and it is 4758401. That 01 is the original number for these ignition coils, M10 to 16 module series motors. Okay, so, and it's this 2 incorporated. Well, this is what I got. Let's try to get a better shot of it here. This thing is like nothing like the original. For starters, if you mount this thing in the motor, all right, let me see if I can get this to focus a little better. The ignition wire is coming out the front, not out the backside like it's supposed to. The kill switch or the grounding lug is off to the right side instead of being in the center. And the second thing is, look how tiny the coil is. I mean, this coil is about, I'd say, 3/4 of the size of the original. So let me take that. Here we go. I'm just trying to get the original to stand up here so we can take a look at them together. All right, there it is. So you can see that that is a small coil in the armature. There's the original coil. I mean, there's so many more coils in general on the original compared to this aftermarket Chinese one. Will this work? Probably. I mean, it probably will work just fine. Will it have as hot a spark as the original one? I have no idea. But I know one thing is I'm using the OEM one. And, you know, if I had just a motor that I needed to get running, I probably would use this. I'm going to let you be the judge on the visuals on whether or not. Now, there's a substantial price difference. I mean, this thing to my door was like $26. I mean, this was 70. This was 26. So, I mean, there's a huge difference in it. But I don't know. I just wasn't going to run this one. I just said, you know what? I'm not going to run that one. I may, you know, maybe in the future I'll run it. I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to get rid of it. But we are definitely going to replace it with an OEM one. All right, so what am I going to do here? I'm going to swap the air diverter over onto this new coil, and I'm going to get it loosely affixed to the bearing plate, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so I have the coil, or the module, snugly bolted into place. Essentially, I got it in there. The bolt holes themselves for the coil itself are slotted, so you can move this whole assembly up and down to set the air gap. Right now, I put it in, I move it all the way up to the highest point that it can go, and then just snug down those little mounting screws. Next, I'll rotate the flywheel into position so the magnet is directly underneath the armature itself, and then I'm going to set the air gap. And the way to set the air gap, even if the blower cover wasn't here, is I usually use just like a piece of manila paper. This happens to just be an old or never used sales tag. It measures out to 12 thousandths. The book says 12 to 16 thousandths, no more than 20. So with this, I should be right around 15 thousandths when I'm all said and done. And essentially, all I do is I'll just line it up and slide it into place. I got to give it a little bit of a push here. I might not be able to do it with one hand, but I'm going to slide that into place completely. So all 3 points of the armature are between the manila and, or I should say the manila is between the 3 points of the armature and the flywheel. I'll loosely or slowly loosen up the 2 mounting bolts. The magnet will draw the coil module to the magnet, and it'll actually stick. At that point, I don't push on it, don't do anything, just let the natural gravity and the pull of the magnet of the flywheel to draw it down to touch the manila. Then I'll tighten down the bolts, and then you just have to just loosely rotate in either direction, doesn't make any difference. Rotate the flywheel, and as you're rotating the flywheel, just take that manila card and pull it right out, and the air gap is set. So I'm going to get that done, and we'll start putting it back together. Okay, so what I've done is I've slid the card in between the magnet of the flywheel and the module itself, and I have loosened up the little mounting screws that I have here. It gingerly just dropped right down. It was, you know, drawn in by the magnet itself, and now I've tightened down those bolts. To get the card out, I'm just going to grab the flywheel, give the flywheel a little twist, pull that card out, because we're not going to need that anymore. And then I'm just going to rotate the flywheel back into place to make sure there's no contact with the coil itself. So with that, it's installed. Oh, one thing, don't take these little screws and send them home. You know, like, make them tight, but keep in mind that you don't want to go too crazy, because this is pretty chintzy cast aluminum, and you don't want to blow out the threads, because that's just a total disaster. All right, I'm going to hook up the wiring together, put the blower cover all back together, and we're going to call this little update install done. And with that, it's all put back together. I lined all the tins back up, so like all my gaps and seams are all real nice and straight. Everything's all bolted down nice and tight. Again, soft aluminum, just make them snug. You don't have to go crazy. It's not like it's a recoil start on the blower cover, so that's that. My throttle linkage, everything's all hooked back up. It all works real good again. We just go ahead and hit that. Everything snaps back to idle just like it's supposed to. So there you go, guys. Did the coil or the module swap on my Magnum 14. Hopefully that'll take care of any kind of ignition problem I may have had. Next is I'm going to button this thing up, and I'm going to try to start it up, but that's going to be in another video. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your interest. Please give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video or if it was helpful in any way. As always, please subscribe so that way you can get my updates. I do have a couple new things coming up shortly. So I really enjoy all your support. I really thank you for all your support. And you guys have a great day.